Well, next speaker. If I can introduce Mark Barry. Now, transport infrastructure has been a common theme in every presentation we've had so far, and especially with the stats that 87% of people are commuting by car into Cardiff. So my next speaker is Mark Barry. Mark was born, grew up in Cardiff, lives in Cardiff. He is the author of the paper A Metro for Wales's Capital City Region, connecting Cardiff, Newport and the Valleys. Wow, thank you very much indeed.
Bit of background. I grew up in Cardiff. I spent a lot of time away as well. I worked and lived in Manchester, London, overseas, Milan, and I've seen different places and I guess developed a view of how we can do things differently and better in terms of the urban environment and connectivity. Some of you might know I ran a biotech company in Cardiff, which I founded in 2003, and I ended up in transport just a few years ago because it's something I'm really passionate about, how this place works. What's happened in the last 2 years, I don't think anyone seriously expected in 2009 that we would have the electrification of the Valley Lines. It wasn't on the agenda. We're kind of hoping we might get electrification of the Great Western Main Line. Well, you know, with the business community and people banging that drum constantly, we've achieved what I think are two major committed infrastructure projects. Over the last 12 months, the whole debate on the city region and how this place works as a region has progressed up the political agenda. I've now been asked, as some of you know, to do a report for the Minister, so I can't talk about the detail of that. I actually handed in all the paperwork last Monday, and there's a lot in there I think people will be pleased about in terms of how this region might function in the future. I'm going to talk about the generalities about the data, the economic context of this region, and the things we have to consider when we're developing a region in relation to transport. So next slide, please. The key thing about the work I've done is that it's been driven by the business community to a large extent and taken on by politicians and governments. The support of companies like Admiral, Centrica, the Royal Cardiff Business Partnership, Capita Sands, Powell Dobson Urbanists, all absolutely screaming for some recognition of the importance of connectivity to help the economy. So it was the role of these guys to help bring me to the table in terms of articulating this metro concept. Next slide, please. And when I started this work, because it's all about people and jobs and well-being, I always start with the economy. And the key issue for me always, when we talk about the LDP or regeneration or development or transport, has to be the economy. And the bottom line is we're not doing very well. The GVA per capita is the Cardiff City region, if I can use that expression, about 80% of the UK average. Wales is about 75%. Cardiff itself is only just over 102%. And actually, if you look at the comparison, I guess the best performing and worst performing parts of South East Wales and other regions, the stark difference for me is not the underperformance of the valley communities or the heads of the valleys, which needs to be addressed, but it's the underperformance of Cardiff as a city, as our focal point of our region versus other parts of the UK that have successful city centres. Next slide, please. And as an example, you look at where Cardiff is versus places like Edinburgh, Belfast, Greater Manchester, Leeds and Nottingham in terms of GVA per capita. Cardiff's at the bottom, just over 100% now, about 110% in 2001. We're quite a long way behind other competitor cities. Now some of that is down to where you draw the boundary and commuting patterns, and you could argue because the GVA figures for Cardiff and the Vale would be probably a little bit higher. But for me, the issue for the region and the LDP.
What is GVA?
Gross value added. It's an economic measure of performance of a region, or a city, or a place. So Cardiff's underperformance for me is critical. Next slide, please. So what I'll do now is look at a snapshot of the region and some of the things I consider when articulating my ideas on connectivity. Next slide, please. We talk about population and projections and debate. The reality is the population of the region today is about 1.49 million, predicted by 2030 to be about 1.6 million. Cardiff itself in 2001 was about 310,000. Today, mid-year estimates 2012 is 348,000 and is likely to exceed 400,000 by 2026, or certainly by 2030. So the reality is population growth has happened, is happening, even though there's been a recession. The figures where people are using still dictate that there's going to be significant population growth in Cardiff. Elsewhere in the region, actually there's been little or no growth. But the noteworthy factor is that the declining population that was taking place until 2001 has pretty much stopped across the region and is flatlined. But it's only Cardiff, less of extent Newport, Bridgend and the Vale of Morgan that have seen any real increases. Next slide, please. Another interesting, I think, factor, which maybe comes up to the point Dunn raised, was actually workplace employment across the region has gone up a little bit, but it's actually gone up the most in Cardiff, and over 80% of the net increase in workplace employment in the last 10 years in the whole of South East Wales has been in Cardiff. I think the workplace employment numbers 2001 were about 180, 185,000. 2011, there's 210,000 people working in Cardiff. So cities grow and Cardiff's got bigger and more people end up in the workplace without any intervention. It's just the dynamism of the city. So actually, Cardiff's projections of 40,000 more people by 2026 in the workplace is not unreasonable given this experience. Next slide, please. The thing that worries me, though, about the economy of South East Wales is clearly there are issues of inactivity and poor GPA per capita across the region and low gross domestic household income. But Cardiff's performance versus the rest of the region is actually been the worst over the last 10 years. I say from about 110% GPA per capita in 2001, it's down to just about 102% now, and it's the biggest fall of all the parts of South East Wales. So we have to be cognizant of that and how we respond to that in terms of economic interventions. Next slide, please.
Mark, 2 minutes.
And one of the reasons for that is that even though workplace employment's gone up in Cardiff, the GPA per capita has gone down, we're not creating enough high-value jobs. And this survey from Oxford Economics that Jones Van der Sar presented shows that we're not good enough at creating well-paid jobs. And that, for me, is the crux of how we need to address the challenges of this part of the world. Next slide, please. I've got to hurry. I'll skip that one. Next slide. Interesting dynamic. Comparing Cardiff as a region with other parts of the UK, other city regions of a similar scale, perhaps Greater Manchester, Nottingham, Newcastle, Leeds. The level of commuting is actually a lot lower here, which suggests to me this region isn't dynamic enough. It's not actually effective enough as a city region and not making the most of the population that exists here. So there's not enough commuting, in my view. Not enough people working in the centre of Cardiff and commuting here from outside the region doing high-value jobs, which is what we need for the whole region. Next slide, please. Going back to the point that has been raised twice this evening, it's not about one particular thing. The LDP can't address all these things, but a city that's successful has got a combination of access to finance, entrepreneurism, high-quality universities, good quality urban environment, good connectivity, and in responding to the challenge, we need a policy or policies that address all of those issues. Next slide, please. Quickly on where I'm at on Metro, I can't go into too much detail, but that's what we're going to be getting in 2019, 2020, electrification of the Valley Lines. And part of the work I'm doing, next slide please, is first of all, looking at where people aren't connected to the rail network. So what we've done is, part of the work is look at the most densely populated parts of the region that are most disconnected. A lot of parts of the region, like Monmouthshire, you can't run a rail line to Monmouthshire, it's too sparsely populated, but actually, there are key chunks, actually, especially in parts of Cardiff, east and west and Newport, but actually, if you use public transport, your only option is a bus to the local city centre. There's no way living in St Mellons, you're going to get a bus and work in Talbot Green, or Taffs Well. And actually, if you want the whole place to become more effective and more economically cohesive, you need to connect more people with more places. So the analysis we've done has identified this shortfall, and we've part of the response. Next slide, please. We've also looked at issues of congestion. The most congested part of the South Wales road network is actually the A470 into Cardiff, clearly the M4 and North West Cardiff. And in the response we're proposing in our Metro plans, these will be part of the thinking. Next slide, please. Fly on. One of the things I'm also keen about, whatever Metro is, whatever it does, it has to be aligned to real development opportunities. It has to unlock activity in the economy. Next slide, please. Again. And there are opportunities. I don't see the issue of building more housing in Cardiff as a problem. I see it as an opportunity. We can only build them if we connect them. And I'm committed. You can't build 5,000 new houses, 6,000 new houses in North East or North West Cardiff anywhere without connecting them. So the transport proposals that we're going to put forward will integrate with what has been proposed in the LDP. And I don't think the LDP can go ahead if there's a credible transport solution in there. Next slide. The Cardiff Enterprise Zone. You know, for many years, the Welsh Government, for whatever reason, didn't focus enough on Cardiff. We now recognise that Cardiff's the driver of the region. We're lacking the high-value jobs the region needs. The Enterprise Zone can be successful if we can get more people in contact and able to get there cheaply, easily, efficiently. It would improve its travel to work area and make it more attractive to employers. Next slide, please. And one point about the region. One of the things we can do, and I don't think we can do it straight away, is look at where there are existing sites allowing for transport corridors that could support more residential living so people can commute more easily. For example, the Hooper site at Pentrabath. It's a desolate industrial site. Actually, you could probably get 500, 1,000, 1,500 homes there, next to a railway station, being 45, 50 minutes from the centre of Cardiff. That's the kind of opportunity Metro will bring. I think fly on 2 or 3 slides. I want to show you something. Next slide. Next slide. I'll leave you with, next one please, some stuff from 1936. These are quotes from a book by, I think it's Mark Twain, published by George Pan. And it's stark actually to read this stuff about, actually this is not new, but actually where we were in 1936. Issues of connectivity, issues of transport, addressing economic activity in the heads of the valleys, lack of a regional response, lack of political will, changing local government. None of what we're talking about is new. What we need desperately to make a change is kind of the vision and political ambition, the determination to do things differently. Because we've been having this conversation for 80 years. And I hope we're not having this conversation in 80 years' time. The time to do something is now, I think. Thank you.